Hey, friends. Welcome back to part two of How to Holiday here in the Parenting Lab. Last week in part one, we talked about boundaries and expectations, how to name what actually matters to you, how to protect your capacity, and how to stop handing your holidays over to other people's preferences or old family patterns. And honestly, that alone is a huge shift. Most of us have never been taught that we're allowed to create emotional and energetic space before the holidays even begin. But now that we've cleared some room, now that we've softened the pressure and made a little breathing space, we get to consider this beautiful question. Now, what do we want to fill it with? Because as parents, we want meaning. We want connection. We want those small grounding moments where something inside us goes, yes, this, this is what I want my kids to remember. But there's also so much noise this time of year, so much pressure to create magic, to make everything perfect, to meet every expectation from every direction. And when we're running on empty or trying to avoid disappointing everyone, it's almost impossible to feel connected to the moments that actually matter. So, today in part two, we're going to talk about rituals and traditions. Not necessarily the Pinterest version, not the performative holiday checklist, but the real meaningful kind. The ones that support your nervous system, the ones that anchor your kids, the ones that help you feel grounded instead of depleted. And I want to make this clear right at the beginning. You get to define what meaningful means in your family, not your in laws, not your mom, not social media, not your childhood memories of how things should be. This is your season now, your family, your values, your capacity. So, as we move into this conversation, I want you to imagine that you're gently holding the holidays in your hands, not gripping or controlling them, just really holding them with curiosity and care. Because meaning isn't something that you force, it's something that you cultivate. So, as we dive into what rituals you might want to create or how to build new traditions, I want you first to slow down and really talk about why these things matter in the first place. Because when we strip away all of the pressure and the performance, rituals are really about one thing, and that's helping our bodies and our relationships feel safe and connected. Humans are wired for rhythm. Our nervous systems love predictability. We settle when we know what to expect. And the holidays, no matter what you celebrate or how you celebrate, tend to be a time of disrupted routines, higher emotions, more people, more noise, more stimulation, more expectations. And rituals really act like anchors in the middle of all of that. They tell our kids, here's something you can count on. They tell our bodies, here's a moment to rest and soften into. And they tell our relationships that this is a place we come back to. That's what makes rituals so powerful. They're not just activities, they're signals. Signals of belonging, of safety, rhythm, identity. Signals that say, this is who we are, or this is how we do this time of year. And traditions? Think of them as rituals that have repeated often enough to become part of your family's story. They are the threads that weave through year after year, shaping memories in ways we don't always notice until much, much later. And here's something important. Traditions don't have to be elaborate to be meaningful. Some of the strongest traditions kids remember are tiny. Drinking hot chocolate while you decorate the tree, lighting a candle before dinner, listening to the same playlist every December, that one recipe that everyone looks forward to. And sometimes the most healing thing we can do as adults is to recognize that we get to decide which traditions to continue and which ones end with us. You are not obligated to recreate the traditions you grew up with if they don't feel supportive now. You are not failing if you're building something new from scratch. And you're not untraditional if your rituals don't look like anyone else's. Rituals only work and become meaningful when they're aligned with your values, your culture, your capacity, your season of life. Otherwise, they become just another item on the holiday checklist. And that is exactly the opposite of what we want. So we know why rituals are important now, but let's bring this back to you, your home, your season, your people. Because the truth is, meaning, like I mentioned before, looks different in every family. What feels nourishing in one home might feel overwhelming or stressful in another. What lights up one kid might not matter at all to their sibling, and that's okay. That's real life. That's just how it goes as parents. Before you choose any rituals or declare any new traditions, I want you to pause and ask yourself a few grounding questions. Think of this as a little meaning scan, a way to tune into your body and your values, your intuition, as you start to fill this space that we worked on creating. So, here are a few questions for you to think about as you begin this process. Question one: what did your kids talk about long after the holidays were over last year? Kids will tell you what landed for them emotionally, not with big speeches, but with the little things they remember. So ask them about their favorite experiences and feelings. These are clues. Question two: what brought you joy last year? And what drained you? We forget that our experience matters too. If something lit you up or helped you feel more grounded, that's valuable information. And if something left you feeling resentful or tense or exhausted, that's information too. Question three: what feels aligned with your values? First of all, do you know your core values? If not, I encourage you to work on finding what those are and really connecting to the meaning that they bring to your life, because rituals rooted in pressure tend to fall apart, but the ones rooted in values tend to last. Question four: what would feel like too much? This is your permission to name what limits you without guilt. If it's just too much, that could mean too costly or too time consuming, too chaotic. If it's too much of anything, it's not sustainable, and therefore it's not meaningful. And finally, question five: what would feel like just enough? Now, this is my favorite question. Not perfect, not magical, not post worthy, just enough to help you feel connected and steady and present. So, as you sit with these questions, I want you to notice what your body does. Does something soften? Does something tighten? Does something feel warm or heavy or expansive? Your nervous system will often tell you the truth before your mind catches up, because meaning isn't created by doing more, it's often created by doing less, by choosing what actually matters and letting the rest just fall away. I encourage you to hold these questions close. Pause and re-listen to them if you need to, because as you sit with them, they really will guide you toward rituals that fit your life right now. Not the life you wish you had, not the fantasy version the internet sells you, not the version you grew up with, just yours. So when most people hear the words ritual and tradition, their mind often jumps straight to events. Baking cookies, decorating the tree, hosting a dinner. And those events are beautiful, of course. But the kind of rituals that actually anchor a family are often much simpler and more woven into the everyday fabric of the season. So think of rituals as small moments you return to, moments that offer rhythm, grounding, or connection. They don't have to be elaborate, and honestly, they don't even have to be planned. Many of the best rituals are the ones that happen naturally and eventually just become what we do. Some rituals are about connection. Maybe it's the way your kids cozy up to you in the light of the tree, or a quiet conversation that you have in the car while you look around at lights. These moments are less about the doing and more about the feeling, the slowing down, the softening, the togetherness. Other rituals are sensory. The holidays come with so much stimulation that having small, calming routines can make a huge difference. Just little things that ignite the senses, the smells, the tastes, and touches that are the hallmark of the holidays. These sensory rituals tend to regulate everyone's nervous system, including yours. And then there are rituals that honor culture or spirituality. These can be inherited from your family of origin, maybe blended together with your partner's traditions, or created entirely fresh. What matters most is the meaning they hold for you, the sense of identity and belonging that they reinforce. Some families build rituals around joy and play, games, stories, parties, things like that. These are the rituals that create memories in almost accidental ways. You look up one day and realize, oh, we do this every year and we love it. And of course, don't forget the rituals of rest. We don't talk about this enough, but rest can be a tradition too. A slow morning, a protected nothing day, a night where everyone is in their pajamas at 5 p.m. and the goal is simply to just let your body catch up with your life. Rest rituals are deeply and sometimes surprisingly meaningful, especially if your holiday season has historically been on the chaotic side. What I want you to notice here is that rituals aren't categories to check off. They're invitations. Invitations to pause, to connect, to feel grounded, to feel safety and meaning in small and repeated ways. When you think about rituals for your family, notice what stirs inside you. Notice what feels comforting and what ideas make your shoulders drop or maybe tense up. Those are your clues. Rituals work best when they support you and not when they perform for other people. One thing that's important to realize is that most traditions aren't created on purpose. They grow quietly, almost without noticing. You do something once because it felt good, or because it was easy, or because it made sense that year. And then the next year you find yourself doing it again. Before you know it, it becomes a thing, part of the story your family tells about who you are and how you do the holidays. There's something really beautiful about that. It shows that the meaningful moments tend to rise up naturally. But there's also something powerful about choosing traditions with intention, especially if you're in a season of breaking old patterns or maybe trying to build a holiday experience that feels calmer or kinder or maybe more connected than the one you grew up with. Intentional traditions start with that inner sense of alignment that we talked about earlier. They come from knowing what matters to you, what your family needs, and what your body has the capacity to offer. They're not about creating a perfect memory. They're more about creating space for memories to happen. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes intention looks like deciding this is the one thing we're going to hold on to this year, or this is the one thing we're going to let go of. It might be choosing a ritual that supports your nervous system, or continuing something your kids clearly love, even if it wasn't originally part of your plan. There's also permission here to release traditions that no longer fit, the ones that cause more stress than joy, or the ones that belong to an older version of your family. Letting go isn't a failure. It's a sign that you're paying attention. Because families grow, kids grow, and seasons change, and traditions can evolve with you. And when you do choose something new, give it room to breathe. New traditions don't have to feel magical right away. Meaning builds over time. So think of it like planting a seed. You water it, you care for it, and eventually it becomes something your kids remember as part of home. So as you think about your holidays this year, consider what you're choosing on purpose, not out of obligation, out of habit, but because it reflects the kind of family you are becoming. When I think about creating a meaningful holiday season, especially one that feels grounded and human instead of frantic and performative, like we've been talking about, I often come back to three quiet guideposts. I'm calling them the three M's, not because we need another system or another checklist, but because they help us move through this season with a little bit more clarity and a lot more compassion. So the first one here is minimize. This is the gentle art of asking, what can I simplify? Not in a productivity sense, but in an emotional and energetic sense. What can you release? What can you shrink? What can you do in a lighter, slower, more sustainable way? Minimizing is less about doing less and more about removing what gets in the way of feeling present or really engaged. Sometimes that's a tradition that never really worked for your family. Sometimes it's the pressure to show up everywhere for everyone. Sometimes it's the expectation that you have to create joy on a certain timeline. Letting things be smaller can actually make things that are left feel so much richer. The second guidepost is make, and this one is all about action. Not perfection, not performance, but choosing to actively create something instead of hoping that it magically happens on its own. Meaning doesn't build itself. Presence doesn't schedule itself. Rituals don't just fall out of the sky. At some point, we have to actually do the thing. Make is the part where you take your values and turn them into something lived. It's the moment you say, okay, this matters enough that I'm going to carve out time for it, or I'm going to put this on the calendar, or I'm going to show up even if I'm a little bit tired. Make isn't about doing more. It's about doing it on purpose. Make requires effort, yes, but it's the kind of effort that pays you back, the kind that strengthens attachment, eases your nervous system, and builds memories your kids will carry forward. Think of it as tending a small fire. It doesn't blaze on its own. It needs a match, it needs a spark, and a few intentional choices to keep it going. And make is that spark. And then we have multiply. And this is my favorite one because you're not adding anything. You're amplifying what already feels good. So think back to something small that brought joy or comfort last year. Multiply simply means do that again. Repeat the moments that worked. Let them grow. Those repeated experiences are what eventually become traditions, not because you forced them, but because they just kept feeling good. So that's it. The three M's: They're not rules, they're more like a soft lens, a way of checking in with yourself as you move through this season. So, what can you do to minimize? What do you want to actually do? What feels worth multiplying? And if you sit with these questions, even briefly, you'll notice something interesting. Most of the answers live in those small moments, the quiet ones, the ones without the price tag, because meaning isn't loud or complicated. It's built in layers through repetition, intention, through the way we choose to show up. And the more we honor that, the more the holidays begin to feel like ours again. Now, I want to take a moment here before we close because I think it's important to acknowledge that not every family or parent enters the holidays from a place of joy or abundance or ease. For some parents, this time of year brings up grief, financial stress, complicated family relationships, or just the kind of exhaustion that makes holiday magic feel completely out of reach. And if that's you this year, I want to say this very clearly. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not failing your kids. You are not missing something that everyone else seems to have. When the holidays don't feel magical, it can feel incredibly tempting to overcompensate, to bake more, do more, buy more, create more, or maybe to fill every moment with something to just spark that little glimmer. But what often happens is just the opposite. We rush beyond our capacity. And instead of magic, we end up with resentment and overwhelm and a body that feels even more depleted. So remember what I've been saying, that meaning doesn't come from effort. It comes from presence. And presence can be small. It can be quiet. It can be imperfect. Sometimes the most meaningful moments in a hard season are the ones that can't be planned. If your holidays feel heavy this year, let your rituals reflect your reality instead of fighting it. Light one candle instead of decorating a whole house. Do one small activity you enjoy instead of all the ones you think you should be doing. Give yourself permission to scale everything down, not because you're giving up, but because you're listening to your capacity. Kids don't need magic. They need you. They need your presence, your softness, your willingness to stop pushing when your body is tired. And if you're grieving, whether it's for a person, a season, a tradition, or a version of the holidays that you wish you had, I want you to know that grief is not the enemy of meaning. Some of the most meaningful rituals are born in seasons of loss. They become bridges between the life you had and the life you're building now. So if this year feels different, let it be different. If it feels tender, let it be tender. And if it feels quiet, let it be quiet. Your holidays don't have to be magical to be meaningful. Now, as we wrap up this 2-part series, I want to bring us back to something simple, something that might even feel a little surprising after all this talk about rituals and traditions and meaning. The holidays, again, are not something you create. They're something you experience. And when we strip away the pressure, the noise, the expectations, and the performance, what we're left with is a season that's supposed to feel like coming home to yourself, to your values, to your family, and the parts of life that matter most. You don't have to get it all right, and you don't have to make every moment magical. You don't even have to carry the emotional weight of the entire season on your shoulders. What you can do is choose. Choose what you want to honor, to release, to repeat, and where your presence wants to land. Now, here's the part I really hope stays with you. Your kids don't need the perfect holiday. They need you to say, "This matters," and mean it. And they need you to also say, "This is too much," and trust it. They need a parent who models how to create connection without burning themselves out, who shows them that traditions can evolve, that boundaries can be loving, and that meaning is something we build gently over time. So as you move into this season, I want you to imagine carrying a small lantern, nothing dramatic, just a soft, steady light. And that's your clarity, your values, your presence, every choice you make, every ritual you keep or let go. That's you tending that light. You don't need to light up the whole world or even the whole season. You just need enough light for your family to see you and know that they're home. So I invite you to take what resonated from these past 2 episodes, leave what didn't, and let your holidays be shaped by the truth of your life right now. Not those online versions or the version that's expected of you, but the one that feels honest and grounded and nurturing for you and your kids. I hope this season brings you slowness where you need it, and connection where you crave it, and permission to create a holiday that feels deeply and authentically yours. Thank you so much for joining me here in the Parenting Lab. I will see you again next week as we continue to explore the art and science of parenting and put your parenting to the test. Happy holidays, everyone.